This video is about depression. I was diagnosed with depression. Surrounding this event, I'm dialoguing my way into talking about depression. This is my personal story of my experience with depression. I'm going to explain it in the best way that I can, which would be more in line with what I was experiencing prior to going in and talking with someone. So there was a lot going on in my life. I was overwhelmed on so many levels. Every morning, I would pray the Fajr prayer. This is before dawn, hour and a half before the sun comes up. Thank God there was a healthy and strong habit I had developed. At least I would anchor myself in this one time at least. So that was my habit. I would pray. And then at some point during the time that I was praying in the morning, when you stand up, aspect of Islamic prayer is a standing position. So I'd be standing there, and I had read this information about prayer. This might be interesting to people who are into spirituality. There was a hadith, a saying of the Prophet Muhammad that I had read or someone told me about, but I read it. And how long should you stay in these various prayer positions? And the short answer I'm going to give you was, stay in those positions until you are at ease. When you stand in these positions, try to be at ease. Relax. There's a very meditative aspect to salat, Islamic prayer, that a lot of people are not aware of or just do not value. So anyway, during these times of prayer, when I'm just trying to stand and be at ease, relax, deeply relax. I would feel as if I was either falling forward or melting. Melting in the sense that just maybe my energy was draining, but not in a hallucinogenic sense, but feeling like I'm always falling forward or melting. Now I would interpret that with a sense of running out of strength. So, and then at other times when I would sit there, try to be at ease and relax, I would think of some traumatic event or just have a very strong, overwhelming emotion and cry, which was not characteristic for me. And the only reason it became a part of my life is because after looking at my interactions with my family and the people around me, I realized my only hope was to do the exact opposite of what I was seeing. So, falling, melting. There was a general feeling. I'd be at work, walking around, driving a piece of equipment, not in a way that's druggy or disoriented, just always falling. It's just, now I was just losing energy. So the next step, when I realized something was wrong, I'd been looking at my life, examining myself. I had enough self-awareness because I was already aware that I was crazy. I say that in a joking way, but I'm going to do a video next after this about crazy, because that will play into the family discussion. So anyway, I realized, I told my wife one day, I said, I think I need to change how I'm doing things in my life. And personally, I felt like I just needed to change my attitude and adjust how I was living because of this experience I had. Later on, there was just, I didn't have enough energy to proceed upon the course I was currently taking, because I saw there was things I should adjust because they weren't healthy. Some of my attitudes, some of my behaviors, etc. I should deal with things. I'm looking at people that I say aren't dealing with things. I should deal with some things, etc. So I had to reorient my life. And then I felt there was another point. This is probably all I'm now I've realized I'm describing just losing a lot of energy. Then I got to the point where I realized I had to prioritize my energy if I wanted to continue on my path, just living. And so that would be a dimming of energy. That's when I went in for counseling. I'm going to say somewhere around that time. And I realized I didn't know, I'd read about depression because I was reading about not being as crazy. I'll fill you in on that, like I said, but I didn't know I was depressed until I went in and talked with someone, because I had read somewhere that sometimes depression is just an overwhelming sense of emotion, not necessarily a deadening. And that is exactly how it felt, because when I went into counseling, and my one concern was that I wanted to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. But then when I tried to explain it, I could not. I could, even now, I could just ramble on about so many things that had such a strong emotional trigger for me that it's as if I couldn't get past any of that, blocked up. I just couldn't get it all out. So eventually, that's just a backup of energy. I was losing energy. This is just a buildup inside. But talking about it over several months, it allowed enough pressure or steam to come off of my mind that I could get a different perspective. So depression, by my definition, understanding the original side of it, was that I was feeling everything at one time. Even when I talk now, if I get onto a specific subject or just something in general, but something specific, focus in on it, I feel all levels of emotion, overwhelmingly so sometimes. Anger, joy, sadness, some just straight out hilarity, deep love, really strong bonds and strong senses of spirituality, doubt, fatigue, bitterness, hatred, anger, things like that. So I realized, it felt to me as if I had no more space inside to process anything, to learn anything, to move forward and fight for an opinion, or make positive moves in any direction, things like that. I couldn't think anymore because there was just so much that was a backlog. Then everything I saw made me think of something or feel something. I feel that's how people end up when they can't get out of bed, or they feel so lethargic they can't get anything done. Sometimes that is a backup of such strong emotion that hasn't been expressed. But I would say the contradictory element of it is that it's like it can't be expressed verbally, or maybe you can't even intellectualize it necessarily at the beginning, but it's just like your body knows something. It's just too much being carried, or such a burden, but there's no intelligent way to process it so that your entire physical system can be in agreement to let this go, or talk about this, or be vulnerable in this area. Big clog up of energy, and horrible. So I found that talking about things and being more open and vulnerable to my own self and in my own heart, which feels like murder if you've ever done that, is horrible but necessary. Depression. So that was my brief synopsis of how I experience it, and my little bit of understanding that I hopefully take away from these horrible times that people go through. I say that now, as I look back, I was depressed before. When I first left Christianity. And then I would go even farther back. I was depressed before that as a kid, just because of dysfunctions and a void in my life around me because of the difficulties of living. So it was horrible to experience, but for me, this time at least, it helped me gain some perspective into myself that I felt like this before. People feel like this. I can recognize this in other people now. And I still have to work on myself to maintain health and openness and to be able to process these emotions and things like that. So the only reason I kind of aware of that is because, like I said, I was already aware that I was crazy. So I'm going to talk about that next because that will affect my videos as I get deeper into the actual subject.